is obviously an enormous subject.
I go to about 300 to 350 shows a year. So I know that arts can change people. I've seen it happen so many times.
So my role at the organization is to create arts programs for children. What I do with the arts is I try to save lives.
Now, I came to Artists Striving to End Poverty when I was 5 years old. My parents would teach parenting classes and marriage therapy courses to farm workers who had recently migrated to this country. The next experience flashed forward 13 years to being 18 years old and a freshman at Juilliard, and my second day of class is September 11, 2001. The professor said to us, they said, a serious amount of destruction just happened up there. Let's counter it with creation.
It's very interesting to try to teach 5-year-old, 6-year-old children about empathy. One of the ways that we can try to do it is through the arts, obviously. And I'll give you an example of one way that we tried to do it last year through merging many different art forms together to tell an extremely compelling story that I don't think we could have told without the arts. The story was about 4 boys that were imprisoned in a concentration camp during World War II. And one boy in particular, whose name was Peter Gibbs, his father was Jewish, his mother was Catholic. So he was torn away from his parents and sent there, while his mother and father still lived in Prague. In the room were something like 25 boys that all lived together with a teacher. And that teacher inspired them to create a magazine every single week to talk about their feelings, to document what was going on through poetry, through literature, through art. So this magazine that was a culmination of several years that these boys wrote was actually saved. It was buried under the floorboards of the concentration camp, and it was discovered later and brought back to Prague and is actually published. We had to tell this story to 5, 6, 7, and 8-year-olds. We made a connection. We tried to say that the only thing that really survives in culture, and very much in history, are the arts. I know that if one child got something out of it, then it made a difference. She said, I want to know more about Peter Gibbs. And this was a black little girl from East Harlem. I think she was probably 7 years old. For her to want to know more about a dead Jewish boy was pretty amazing, and I think that was a shining effort of what empathy is.
When Diary of Anne Frank was produced on Broadway, it certainly was a sensation and won a Pulitzer Prize. But when it was done in Germany, where the Nazis, of course, were in power, and the reasons the Franks had to go into hiding, after the first performance, one of the authors told me this, there was no applause whatsoever. And the author said, boy, I guess they didn't like it. No, they did like it. They were ashamed of what had happened. And a play like this will keep something from that from happening again. In Raisin in the Sun, done on Broadway in 1959, believe me, many of the white people who went to see that show, when they walked into that theater, said, I do not want black people living next door to me. I do not want that. When they came out of that play 2.5 hours later, their minds had changed because they had been with these people. Now, there have been movies of the Diary of Anne Frank and Raisin in the Sun, and they're not shown that often. And yet those plays get continually revived. Why? Because when you're sitting in a room with these people, you feel like you're a part of them and their problems. You are a silent partner involved with them. And that's why theater is such a powerful medium.
There is a researcher that speaks of empathy. The best definition I've heard so far is as genuine curiosity, of being curious about what someone else is going through without imposing judgment. And one of my experience was teaching a group of men I was leading a conversation about what it means to be a man. And in that conversation, we started talking about rape. And some of the men in our group were rapists. And they were teenagers. They were 18, they were 19 years old. I have a problem with that. But in that moment, I had to give over because what I was interested in was this curiosity. What does that mean? What is that about? Why? And allow that person to be humanized, which created ultimately a space for forgiveness. Okay? and a space for grace.
When we go into schools, it's just a cultural change when we bring an arts program into the schools. And kids want to be part of something big, they want to be part of something good. They feel pride in their school and what they can accomplish. The arts do that and more. They humanize us, they enlighten us, enrich us, empower us. That's one of our major things that we want to do. And I don't know any child in a dance room or in a theater class or in a chorus that feels isolated.
I saw a big sign in Albany saying, "The Wiz, tonight, free, Washington Square Park." Wow, it was Claude Reveille. Hey, why not see The Wiz? I pull up, I walk in, the place is pretty packed. It's an outdoor theater, but there is one seat in the front row that's completely empty. And I thought, oh great, again, I love to sit in the front row. I sit there. And I noticed to the left of me are a whole group of senior citizens. To the right of me is a young black couple. And both husband and wife, they have a stroller in front of them with the kid, hands crossed, and they're not speaking to each other. And I know what happened. She said to him, "I want to go see this play. We're not going." "Come on, we're going. It's free." "I'm not going. I'm not going to no play." "You are going." And so by the time they got there, they weren't speaking to each other. They were furious with each other. Now, there are some people, when they enjoy a joke at the theater or a movie, they turn to the person next to them and acknowledge, "You've seen it happen. You might even do it. Fine." All right. So anyway, the white woman is looking to me, and I'm not laughing because I don't find it funny at all. All right. And the black guy is laughing, and he can't turn to his wife. He can't admit that she was right. This was a good idea. So suddenly they connect to each other. And I'm looking, and in front of me, they're leaning in. Old, white, female, young, black, male, laughing at jokes, sharing it. If those two people were walking down the street, they would assume they have nothing in common with each other. And yet, this experience brought them together. Art can do this.